What is good, all of our listeners and viewers? Welcome to another episode of Games and Groceries. My name is Adam.
And I'm Liz.
And we've got a new look with the same great taste. We are here with episode 88, where we're going to talk about will video games ever cease to exist? Yeah, we got it. We got a new logo.
We do.
Yeah, it is pineapple themed.
It is.
Yeah. So the reason why we have the pineapples is because pineapples belong on pizza, and those are facts.
Well, I'm allergic to pineapple, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Also, I don't think I'd like that very much anyway, so. Ugh.
Yeah. No, it's actually about infertility and reaching out to other couples who, struggle with that. But, yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah?
Yeah. How are you, though?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
I need to get free coffee this week like I did last week, but.
By the way, if you want a more in-depth explanation of the logo, we talked about it on this past Wednesday's upload on the YouTube channel. I will link it up here and put it in the description. So if you want to learn more, you can check out that video. But Liz, continue. What? How was it good?
It was just good. Nothing bad happened. Wasn't too busy at work.
Yeah.
Got Chinese food.
Yeah. Chinese food.
Yeah, it was Chinese food night.
It was Chinese food night.
And I tried something newish.
Newish?
Well, I knew I kind of liked it because what I got at the buffet when I went with your mom a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I know I like that. Let me try it like with the shrimp in it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, my week was also pretty good.
Yeah?
If anybody really cares. I think nobody really listens to it that I know about, but I started a new job in March.
Yeah.
Which finally, it will give us more time together.
And why is that?
Because it's at your job.
It is. Adam's going to come join me at my job. I'm so excited to work with my husband every day.
Ouch. But so I prefer this job much better because restaurant work is a lot on my knees. And that's coming from a guy who's done bodybuilding for a while.
Yeah.
And it is a lot on my knees. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this. We've got a new logo. I got a new job coming. Liz had a good week, so I'm pretty happy.
I got nothing going for me.
I mean, yeah. Cool.
Well,
okay.
I got the better video editor.
You did.
I'm super confused.
Yeah, if you saw that, if you're on YouTube and you're watching this and you saw the new intro,
I edited that on Premiere Pro, whereas before I was editing on Premiere Elements.
Yeah,
which is cheaper and a lot easier, sort of in a way. I think I only found it easier because I've been using it for over a year now to edit. But yeah, so bear with me as I'm learning Premiere Pro, but I definitely have more things available to me with Premiere Pro. So I'm excited to see what we can do with it.
So I think we can get started with the episode today. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes. Awesome. So before we get into our first segment, we want to remind all of you that we're on social media. We're on Twitter at Gaming Groceries. You can check us out. You can check us out there. Also, follow us individually. I'm at Ace the Grocer.
And I'm at Journey First.
You can also follow us on Instagram, Games and Groceries, all one word, where you can check out some behind-the-scenes photos every now and again. We're going to work on our Instagram game a little bit better.
Yeah, I need access to that.
Yeah.
I need to take over.
And then I will give you the credentials this week.
Okay, I'll take over.
And you can check us out on Facebook. You just search for us on Facebook. Definitely check out our website, gamesgroceries.com, where you can check out any articles that I write. I'm going to try to get better at that now that we have more free time a little bit. And check out some of the episodes on the website and find out where can you listen to the audio versions of the podcast. You can check it out on the website. And if you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when all these podcasts come out, as well as our new videos that we talked about on Wednesday's episode as well. We are going to be starting those on Saturday. They're going to be bi-weekly. I'm really nervous to start them because, It's a new venture for us, but we're really excited for this YouTube journey. So, with all that said and done, let's move into our first segment.
Movie Minutes.
Movie Minutes is a segment that we talk about the movies that we saw in the past week, whether it be on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, not so much Disney Plus, and in theaters, and we like to recommend it or we don't recommend it. I say we don't talk about Disney Plus enough because, okay, so after The Mandalorian, really quick side note, after The Mandalorian, like we're watching Kim Possible right now.
Yeah, I think we're getting our money's worth in Kim Possible episodes.
But just like, I look through Disney Plus and I'm just like,
It's more nostalgia for us right now.
Nostalgia, and if you have kids.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. It's nostalgia for us right now, but I think once we have kids, it'll be a lot more worth it.
Yeah.
Because we can show them not only our shows that we had growing up, but it also will have their shows and their movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think it's worth it. And there are movies on there that I want to watch that I didn't get to watch yet.
Yeah.
So.
But
and like movies that I haven't watched in years that I want to watch. So it's worth it. It's all worth it.
So let's get into this week's movie, though. We found this movie on Netflix. It's a movie I wanted to watch for a while, ever since it's come out. And I just, it's one of those movies that
you
I just never got.
It wasn't as intriguing as another movie, so you never got around to it.
Yeah. And it is starring Zac Efron. And didn't you say there was somebody from Teen Wolf? Oh, no, somebody from Hunger Games.
There were a couple people. Yes.
Well, let me just say the title of the movie.
Yeah.
We Are Your Friends. And it stars Zac Efron and some people that Liz recognizes, apparently. Opening thoughts.
I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. There were times where we weren't sure where it was going.
Right.
But it was all around, I think it was a good movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's Zac Efron. Can't go wrong with Zac Efron.
That's the thing. I feel like Zac Efron is one of those actors that is just very underrated. I feel like he's gotten better treatment than Robert Pattinson in a way of redemption. Zac Efron isn't really defined by High School Musical as Robert Pattinson is defined by Twilight.
But you want to know why?
Why?
Because Zac Efron did more hit movies after.
Right.
Because after High School Musical, he went, bam, Hairspray. And that was, I think, the starting point. Because they stopped seeing him as Troy, whatever his last name was. I don't know his last name. But they stopped seeing him as High School Musical, and they said, oh, he can do that because his hair was, so different.
Right.
And, that was the big thing. If you ask me and my friend Elena, we didn't have crushes on Zac Efron until Hairspray. We did not see the attraction in High School Musical. We didn't understand it in High School Musical. We saw Hairspray. We were like, yes.
Dang.
So I think that's the difference. That Robert Pattinson, he did movies, but he did more indies.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't get that recognition that Zac Efron was because Zac Efron did hits instead of indies.
Right.
That's my theory.
Well, speaking of indies, We Are Your Friends is definitely an indie film.
Yes.
And let me just go into my first notes. So, We Are Your Friends is about the life of Cole Carter, who is an up-and-coming EDM artist. And you see him in a house and just trying to make these different kind of beats, and he's at a bar and just playing every Thursday night. He gets free drinks for it. So it's just kind of his up-and-coming story, and the whole We Are Your Friends, he's got this friend group, right, that kind of they're a bunch of daydreamers, right? One of them is an actor, the other one is kind of
his manager,
and then you got another guy, Squirrel, and he just kind of is there.
I don't know what he does.
And then, Zac Efron's character, Cole Carter, finds a mentor, and, he takes him different places. So that's kind of the general synopsis. But my first note is you're coming into a life of Cole Carter that is already established.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of exposition needed, but I would say there's a lot of exposition wanted, but it's not needed.
Yeah, you don't need to know his backstory to get this, but you're kind of interested in what it was because they do make small comments toward it, they originally planned on putting it in, but then they decided not to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be But yeah, I agree. It's not needed, but it's definitely something that you're like, wait, I want to know why is he here? Why is he living here? Where's these people?
Yeah.
So I agree.
And the whole film, you're trying to figure out where they're going in the story. Because at first I thought this was going to be the EDM version of Whiplash, where it takes a deep focus, like what Whiplash does. It takes a deep focus on jazz music and jazz drumming. And I thought this was going to be kind of Whiplash in EDM, where it was going to be like, who's the guy from J.K. Simmons? I thought J.K. Simmons was going to come up and be like, faster again. But, in like EDM bass drops. That'd be sick. Anyways.
Weird.
But, it's not really about that. It's more of the line of his morality, where he kind of puts his ties in, who his friends really are. It's kind of the life of Cole Carter. But this is my second note. During the movie, I wasn't sure. Okay, so here's my second note. I wasn't sure if I should root for Cole in this movie.
You always root for Zac Efron.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's like you always root for him. And it was kind of like watching Tom Hanks in Road to Perdition, because it's Tom Hanks. He's a good guy, but he's the bad guy in Road to Perdition. And same thing with this, where you're rooting for Zac Efron because he's a cutie. But in this movie, his character is just such I hate it.
He's not a bad guy in this.
He is, though.
No, he's not a bad guy. He just wasn't thinking straight. But he's still the good guy, because the things he does, he thought he was doing something good.
Yeah, like
you know what I mean? Like, he didn't realize that what he was doing was bad.
Right. Well,
but he was still nice. Like, you saw in the movie that he had morality.
Yeah.
Like, he had strong morals. Like, he wouldn't do certain things because he knew it was wrong.
But, there's a certain light spoilers here. There's a certain girl in the movie where I'm just like, dude, just drop her. Just stop. Just find another one. You shouldn't be going after this one. Stop it. Stop it now. Stop. And he keeps going. And that's the thing. Like, he makes these stupid decisions. And I was just like, am I supposed to root for Cole in this movie?
Always.
No. But you're just saying that because of abs. But
I don't care about his abs.
And that's the thing. Like, I wasn't sure. And I was writing this movie at a 5.5. It's just average. I'm not sure where we're going in this. And I was just riding that wave of a 5.
Yeah.
My final note is the third act brings everything together. Like, in the whole movie, you're just kind of like, okay, what direction are we going in? Much like this conversation. What direction are we going in? Am I supposed to be rooting for Zac Efron? Is his career going to go anywhere? It's just kind of all a little frustrating. And I wasn't sure where we're going in this, but the third act is so beautiful. It really is.
It was well done.
Because, okay, so this is where we get into spoiler territory, so I won't say too much. But at the end, it's all about redemption. It's all about morality. And more importantly, the third act is all about perception. And it puts everything in Zac Efron's character's life, it puts everything in Cole Carter's life into perception.
Perspective.
No, it's like his perspective. Perception. Perspective.
It's perspective.
Panda bear. But it puts everything into perspective for him. What he should be doing, how he should be treating people, who his friends really are, how he should be treating his friends. And so beautifully done. So that's my last note, but I think we should get into our final ratings here. What did you think about the movie? Why?
I gave it a 7.5.
Okay.
Because I enjoyed it. I really love the artistic style they did with it. It, to me, actually, I wanted to add this little tiny note here, was that it seemed to me the way that the 90s movie, the skater movie.
But keep going.
The way that it seems like that's where it wanted to be, but it wasn't. But it was really good. I loved the artistic liberty they took with it. I like the artistic shots. I enjoy this movie. There were just some things that I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Why they do this? Why, like, things, they're just little things. But I really enjoyed it. It was good. Not a waste of time.
Yeah. I also gave it a 7.5 because it's not a solid film, because there were so many times in your watching this where you're just like, why? Or you're just kind of confused in the direction. And is this going to be more about EDM music, or is it going to be about Cole's character and who's this mentor person? But the end pays off so well that it raises my 5.5 to a 7.5, a 7.5, a 7 being, this is a decent movie. This is fine. This is good. And I think it's just that much more than a decent movie.
Yeah.
I would give it a 7.5 because of the third act.
Yeah.
But I will say in the second act, there's some things that are in question and you're just wondering why. But
that third act.
That third act is fantastic. And I think this movie is only an hour and 36 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't too long.
Yeah. So it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think this is a movie well worth watching. For anybody that's watching this, who's sensitive to, movies that depict drugs and sex, this is a hard, I shouldn't say a hard R. It's a rated R movie. It does go into details of like how this EDM life kind of affects you negatively with parties and drugs and women. And it's just like, it kind of puts that in perspective. So if you're kind of sensitive towards that, it's definitely a rated R film. So definitely put that in your little mindset. But yeah, I think that can do it. Again, that's We Are Your Friends. You can find it on Netflix. I recommend it.
Yep.
Liz recommends it. It is not Whiplash with EDM.
No.
All right, so let's just jump into our second segment.
Top 3 Gaming News.
The top 3 gaming news is the gaming news that we saw in the past week, and we like to rank it 3, 2, 1 just to give you a condensed version of what's going on in the games industry. So, like we said, we like to do this top 3 gaming news, and it's personally to us the top 3 gaming news. So, let's start with our number 3 gaming news, and this is about our good buddy Phil Spencer. He's my good buddy. We are best friends. We are Biffs, and we're gonna get ice cream cones after we record this episode.
You don't like ice cream.
Well, quiet you. So Phil Spencer has gone on record. Now, this is the whole next gen coming out. By the way, little side honorable mention. The Xbox Series X and PS5 might be delayed due to coronavirus. That's pretty much it. And that's a rumor that's not really established. But, the next gen is coming out pretty soon, maybe into 2021 because of the coronavirus. But, that leads into this interview that Phil Spencer was a part of. And, okay, let me just say his quote here, which is pretty interesting. Phil Spencer, who is head of Xbox, says, "When you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them. But we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward," says Spencer. "That's not to disrespect Nintendo or Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, which is their cloud gaming format, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in the cloud for years, over the years." So Phil Spencer is now saying that Nintendo and Sony are no longer part of their competitors. In fact, I love what he says, that they're out of position. But it's actually going to be Amazon and Google who are the main competitors that are equipped for their future. And I think this is just a big sign that the Xbox brand is going more for cloud gaming, and there's more going to be a platform than it is going to be a gaming console.
Yeah, I agree, because if they're not counting Nintendo and Sony as their competitors anymore, and they're saying Amazon and Google, which are streaming, so I would say, it looks like Xbox is looking towards doing more of a streaming platform than being a console.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what they do. But he definitely tells a little bit with this quote.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird that he puts in Google here, where a lot of people are trying to jumping ship from Stadia, and it's just a little odd that he includes Google in this, not Nvidia, but he's putting in Amazon and Google as main competitors. And that tells me that because Phil Spencer has his ear to the ground with his competitors, he's not stupid. Whether or not you think the man is stupid, he made Game Pass. Or he he greenlit it anyway. But he's respecting Google as a competitor. And that tells me that Stadia might have some, tricks up the sleeve that Phil Spencer knows that we don't. So that's an interesting quote. And that's why it's number 3. It's just a quote saying that like the future is game streaming and their main focus is game streaming. And I think that's where Xbox is going, where PlayStation and Nintendo are staying their grounds in the terms of like game consoles. So, yeah. Any other thoughts?
No.
Yeah. But cool quote, dude.
Good job.
Yeah. Thanks. So number 2. Oh man. So this is a game that we're looking forward to.
We are.
This is about Animal Crossing.
Woo.
Animal Crossing New Horizons is the game that I want to play.
Good job.
Thanks.
That was beautiful.
So this is some bad news. Oh boy. So this past week, like this has been going around since last Tuesday, and more information comes out. In fact, pulling back the curtains, we record these on Fridays. They come out on Mondays. That's because, we edit the video. What Liz does. And that's the thing. Like, so by the time this episode comes out, more information might be coming.
Yeah.
But Animal Crossing save files might be an issue. So again, let me read a quote here and then let's discuss this. So this is from Kotaku. By the way, all the articles that we're discussing linked down below in the description. So if you want to check them out for yourself, they're linked down below. Oh no, I just realized there's a spelling error right out the gate on this quote. Good job, Kotaku. Payers. Okay, so I'm going to say players. Players can only create one island per Switch system. One island per Switch. Even if they create more user accounts or buy extra copies of the game. Their save data will also be locked to the Switch it started on. No transfers allowed between consoles. New Horizons will not support cloud saves. Although Nintendo is working on a save data backup feature for the game that will launch at some unspecified point in the future. Liz, opening thoughts.
Well, as far as the island, I don't have a problem with that because that's how it was in the GameCube version.
Yeah. When
it came out, you shared.
But you can swap memory cards.
You could. But wherever that storage was, you shared that island. There were like 4 houses, I think.
Yeah.
And you shared that space with the other people who saved there.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with that. A lot of games do that, and I don't mind that. But as far as the no transfers, no save backup, that bothers me because, like, especially when it comes to the Switch, because the Switch is used by a lot of kids. Kids break things because they don't realize that when they drop this, it might shatter.
Yeah.
And things get broken and things get lost. And in these days, things get stolen. And to not be able to have your game still on another console, like be able to get a new Switch, like you're gonna have to start the whole thing all over again. Like that's a little insane to me. In this day and age, that should not be a problem. This shouldn't even be a topic.
Now, going back to your first point, and that's a lot of people what they're arguing right now. Like, well, that's how it's always been. Now, here's the thing. It's 2020. Like, here's the thing. Technologies are advancing, and I know it's it's been a thing since, the GameCube version. But you're telling me that, Liz can create her island and I can create my island. But if we're using the same Switch system, like I can't, like, I don't know. It's just kind of stupid to me. Then that's just kind of like, I want to create my own island. I'll play with you. You're my wife. And that's great.
I guess maybe I'm not understanding what the problem is because I don't really know much about New Horizons. Like, I don't know what you
create your own island. Like you basically have like a deserted island and you get to design it the way you want. So it would be
now I'm understanding the problem.
So it would be like if you were playing Sims and I get to mess up your house that you're specifically designing.
Gotcha. Now I understand, and now I have a problem with it. I was imagining like just the original Animal Crossing, where it's not like you can change anything; you just live there.
No, you change everything. It's customizable, and that's
then I have a problem with that because we do not have the same styles.
No, and that's the thing is that like.
Guess we need to buy another Switch.
I guess so.
Yellow.
Well, let's buy that Animal Crossing one. Anyways.
Oh, anyway.
No, they're bad. No, will not give you more of my money. Anyways. But here's the thing. It's 2020, and I feel like this is so anti-consumer, and like technology is advancing so far that like, why can't we have our own island?
Yeah, and if you're gonna make it something that's customizable per person, like, why would you have it one island? Do you know what kids will do to that?
Yeah.
Like, I know that, like, from watching other siblings and having two sisters, that siblings, like, if you're forcing them to share this island that they're creating, someone's gonna get mad and someone's gonna delete something.
Yeah.
And that someone's been working on. Someone's gonna crush something. Someone's gonna take something away. Someone's gonna paint. Like, it's gonna be horrible. This is a horrible idea. And
the fact that it's not supporting cloud saves, a Nintendo first-party game, is not supporting cloud saves. Like, that's ridiculous to me. Like, and they're saying like, oh, Nintendo is now looking into it. We'll see. And it's just like, it's so dumb. It's a first party game, Nintendo. Like, I'm sorry I'm getting so frustrated about Animal Crossing, but it's just like, it's 2020. And this is the thing that's most frustrating about Nintendo games is that it feels like they have no budget when they have all the budget, especially Pokemon. Like, Pokemon has the highest budget possible in all IPs, and we should expect more of them.
Yeah.
Same thing with all these Nintendo games. It's like, Animal Crossing especially should have all the budget.
We know that you can do this, so why are you not doing it?
They pretend that, they're broke, but come on.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to really say. Anything else?
No.
We're still buying Animal Crossing.
Well, yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
This isn't going to stop us from buying it. It's just inconvenient.
Yeah, it's just like, I hate this. Here's my money. I'm still buying Animal Crossing. Don't worry about that. It's just that I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
So let's go into our number one gaming news, though. And that is, this is a big deal, though. This honestly is, because Rockstar, the game company, obviously, Rockstar, the co-founder, Dan Houser, is leaving the company. He's leaving the company in March, but this is after a year-long vacation. That's just crazy.
Maybe he was soul searching.
Maybe, because, well, let me get into this. So, a little backstory here. If you remember who Dan Houser is, by the way, he is the co-founder with his brother Sam, I believe. Yeah, Sam Houser. Him and his brother founded Rockstar. But if you don't remember who he is, if you remember when Red Dead Redemption 2 was being in production and in the crunch time, Dan Houser was the one who made the quote about the 100-hour work weeks, as if he was proud of it. And then he clarified, he said, no. Only like the management is doing 100-hour work weeks, including himself. He was doing 100-hour work weeks. Once that game launched, it looks like, well, okay, let me read this quote real quick. This is coming from a filing from 2K Games. And it says, according to this from Eurogamer, by the way, according to a new filing posted at Take-Two's investor relations website, it says, after an extended break beginning in the spring of 2019, he's still on it. beginning in spring of 2019, Dan Houser, vice president, creative at Rockstar Games, will be leaving the company on the 11th of March 2020. He's been on a year-long break, and he deserves it, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of insane that, like, he was the one that said, like, we're working 100-hour work weeks, and he's just like, I can't do this anymore. And he goes on sabbatical, basically, for a year, and then he just ends up saying to the company, like, you know what? I'm not coming back.
I want a company to pay me to take a year off of work.
Well, be a co-founder of a huge game company.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get on that.
Any thoughts?
I understand it. Like, after working that many hours.
Yeah.
And probably after seeing what his life could be like, not doing anything.
Yeah. It doesn't really.
He's like, I understand. And he's just like, I don't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it sounds like to me.
It doesn't sound like he's going into another company. It just sounds like he's done.
Can't do it.
Yeah, he's just done. And I don't blame him.
No.
After the crunch hours of Rockstar, and it's come out in reports saying that, like, Rockstar Games is not, like, the best company to work for.
Yeah. But it's his company, so it doesn't really work for it.
True. Now, reports have come out that stock for Rockstar Games has dropped drastically, and this decision is affecting the company a lot. Now, Sam, his role is staying the same. Mm-hmm. He's still going to be where he is. Nothing's really going to change about it. That's according to the filing report. But it's just insane. Like a co-founder just takes a year-long break and says, you know what? I've had enough. I'm not coming back. Mm-hmm. And I think this is going to affect the games industry more than people think. I think this might be a ripple effect. I don't think he's going to another game industry. I think he's just done.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But
yeah. By the way, another little side, like, honorable mention in the top 3 gaming news. Speaking of people who are leaving, Rod Ferguson of the Coalition, who made Gears 4 and 5, he's leaving the Coalition to head up the Diablo franchise.
Wow.
Yeah, good for Rod Ferguson.
Good for him.
But yeah, so about Dan Houser, it's very unfortunate, but I can't blame the guy. So, anything else to say?
I don't think so.
Cool. All right, so like we said, the top 3 gaming news, Phil Spencer says that Nintendo and Sony are not really competitors in his eyes. It's actually Amazon and Google, which means that Xbox is going in the way of cloud gaming. Nintendo are being annoying and saying that you can't transfer save files of Animal Crossing, and they're being all weird about it. And finally, Dan Houser is leaving Rockstar, and this is going to have a huge ripple effect on the games industry. If you want to check out any of those articles, they're linked down below. Highly recommend you do your reading. Don't take my word for it. Take Eurogamer's word for it. So, with that said and done, let's just move on to our final segment. Every single week here on the Games Groceries podcast, we like to talk about things in the games industry, whether it be about female gamers or game preservation. We just like to talk about it for a half an hour or so. And this is our big topic that we like to end our podcast with. And that today, this thing, episode 88, we want to talk about, will video games ever cease to exist? Exciting. Dun, dun, dun. So we always like to start our conversations by defining the conversation, and let's talk about it. Why would somebody actually think that video games could end eventually? Like, what do you think?
I think what would spark that idea is just how negative it's been lately.
Yeah.
Like, just from the past couple of years, like we were talking earlier in the top 3 gaming news, that Dan Houser was working so much, and that whole year just spiked, like, companies just like going crazy, working people like crazy. Like, it just kind of came out like how long of days developers and creators have when they're working on a game.
Talk about Anthem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think just like in the past couple years, so much negative stuff has been coming out.
Yeah.
The consumers have been more critical.
Yeah.
And the developers have become just not pleasant towards the consumers.
Right.
And even like the Game Awards is getting not fun to watch. The E3 is not getting fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of like I can see where someone would think this because it does feel like the games themselves are doing okay. They're not even great at that really right now either because they all come out half done.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subject that we don't want to get me started on.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems like the gaming community hasn't been at its best the past few years, where I can see why some people would think like, how long is this going to last? How long are we going to deal with this? It's either going to get much better or it's going to die. Yeah,
in my opinion, just to piggyback off you, I think that people think that it's going to end because of the negativity. And not only that, but when Parliament called into question Epic Games and EA Games with the whole surprise mechanics.
Yeah, and when you're bringing the political parties and the government into this stuff, it's like, whoa, okay, so we're being taken seriously and we're not sure how to handle that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like there's a lot of spotlight on video games right now.
In a negative light.
Yeah, whether it be about violence, the microtransactions, the negativity, or the spotlight within the gaming community, like what you said, Dan Houser, or with how Anthem was made and BioWare, like as a whole, Bethesda Game Studios, it's just crumbling right now.
And I think even more importantly, because I didn't even think of what you said, like the public spotlight, video games aren't looking too good. Even though studies show that video games don't cause violence in people or anything, that's how the public sees it. Yeah. And that can do a lot of damage in any community.
And I think when you look at this more deeply, I think that's where you kind of get this almost like this fear. Like, could video games cease to exist someday because it's just getting harder and harder? Now, going to my next point, speaking about games getting harder, they're getting larger and more expensive to make. Yeah. And that's the thing. When people talk about microtransactions in games, and we talked about this a little bit on another episode of the podcast, which I don't remember which number, but we talked about how games are getting more expensive to make, and yet we're kind of bashing microtransactions. Now, I think there are predatory microtransactions. I definitely agree with that. But they have to fund these projects so much. In fact, hold on. What do you think about it while I fact check myself?
What do I think about it?
Yeah, about the microtransactions and how they're getting more expensive.
I understand that games are getting more expensive, and I've said this in other episodes also that that I understand they're getting more expensive and harder to put out and all these things, but I still think a game should be complete upon release. It should not have a day one patch. And as far as microtransactions, as long as they're not something that helps you advance in the game, like you can only pass level 3 if you have this knife that costs $30, Yeah. Those things I don't agree with. But if you want to dress your character with like $100 worth of microtransactions, go ahead.
Now, okay, so I was just fact checking myself here. So talking about how games are getting much more expensive to make. Now, talking about the big budget games, like talking about putting into perspective about inflation and all that. I get that. Fine. But work with me here. Halo 2, the massive, massive game when it first came out. In fact, I might make a video about how Halo 2 changed my life. I definitely will, because Halo 2 was a phenomenon in my life. But the budget for this game, now this is just a quick, internet search, so I might be wrong. But the budget for Halo 2 was around $20 million. Okay? $20 million, 2004. Red Dead Redemption 2, which came out in 2018, the budget was $80 to $100 million.
Oh my goodness.
80 to 100 million. Again, this is just a quick Google search, so I might be wrong. But put that in perspective, games are getting much more expensive. And to produce these games, it's taking a lot more maintenance. It's taking a lot more manpower. And, some might think that this could be a bad sign for gaming. Now, going into my next point, though, even about budgets and more expensive, another reason why people might think that this, could spell an end for video games someday. We talked about this, about Joe Biden's words about video games and how politicians someday might be getting their hand on video game laws. And they're really going to put some heavy laws and, probationary.
There you go.
Some probationary watches.
Helped, but I didn't know where you were going.
Probationary watches on games. And it's just kind of like how the government can have that kind of power over games where they might be just innocent.
Yeah.
They're not about violence, but, the government...
They'll say, oh, there's this in it. That's violent.
Exactly. Like, what do you think about that even the government can have a hand on video games?
I think
Besides the Green Party.
You don't know where they stand on video games.
Well,
they want them to be digital. That's probably about it.
Yeah, but we're Green Party. We love video games, so that means all Green Party likes video
I don't
games.
think so.
Okay.
Anyway, so...
Jill Stein.
She's not even running.
You were saying?
So, I think the most, rule in games should just be the ratings.
Mm-hmm.
You can make the ratings more intense, like they did with movies. If you watch a movie that was rated PG in the 90s and a movie that's rated PG today, they'll be very different.
Yeah.
Because Big Daddy is PG.
Yeah.
He curses in that movie.
Yeah.
It would be PG-13 today.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with video games. You can change where those things land on that scale of how they're rated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's all there should be. I think when it comes to stopping kids from doing things in video games, I think that's up to the parents.
Yeah.
Same thing with movies and TV. We want video games to... the gaming community wants video games to become normalized like movies and TV.
Yeah.
The way to do that is to treat them like movies and TV. It's up to the parents.
Right.
The parent wants their 5-year-old watching a rated PG-13 to rated R movie. That's, that's on them.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with video games. It's up to the parent to decide if this is a game that they want their, 10-year-old to be playing.
Yeah.
So as far as I just wish that politicians and people who aren't in the gaming community would understand that. People look at the gaming community like, oh, it's the separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's another form of entertainment, just like books, movies, and TV.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that there's a lot of stigma against video games right now, whether it be about in the gaming community, in the public eye, in the politician's eye. And when we talk about why people would even question would video games ever cease to exist, there's a lot of factors going against video games right now. And even on the littlest fact, on the tiniest fact here, gamers are kind of growing up. Even right now, I'm 29 years old and I do a video game podcast. And I already talked about how I have a gaming backlog New Year's resolution. And I'm finding it difficult even getting through that because I have so little time. By the way, quick question. Write in comments down below or tweet at me at Ace the Grocer. I said that I would put The Witcher 3 in my games category. Is it okay to skip that? I'm like 15 or 20 hours in and I'm just like, I'm not really into it. Is it okay if I, kind of get that off, or should I stick to my resolution? Write in the comments down below.
I've barely started my backlog. Sorry.
Yeah, but
it's probably not going to happen.
I just want to get the Sunset Overdrive. But anyways, I'm getting off the topic. But going into a lighter side of gaming here, though, people are always saying this that okay. By the way, to finish my thought, gamers growing up, we're getting less time. The younger generation is all about Fortnite, and they're not really growing up in this stage where, video games are this beautiful thing, and blah, blah, blah. But that's a generalization. I think that video games will change in the times. Let me slam my phone down.
No, you're so violent when you talk. I need to take things from you.
Nope.
No, you almost poked my eye out with this earlier.
I need that. That's my pen. Anyways. But yeah, so however, we've seen studies that video games don't cause violence. And you brought this up. Mm-hmm. We've seen studies overseas in Sweden. We've seen studies, in America.
Yeah.
That video games do not cause violence and actually, are better for the mind too.
Yeah.
We've seen studies that it could help prevent dementia.
Yeah, I mean, and I know personally for me, I feel like video games are a way of releasing that aggression.
Yeah.
That's just all I had to say.
Oh.
That was like for me personally. Like I feel like that's a good way of releasing that aggression by going crazy in a game.
And there's been studies where that's exactly what they are. Is that it releases tension. Now, I asked you on Twitter and Instagram. I'll ask you every Friday or whenever we record these podcasts. What do you think? And I'll ask you about the topic. And I want to hear your thoughts. We'll pick like 3 to 5. But since this is new, kind of, we only have 2 today. But one's from Volt Supreme, and I asked, do you think video games will ever cease to exist? Volt Supreme has to say never. The definitions might shift over time, and this is what we're going to go into. But even then, people still love the old school retro styles. Yep, I agree with that. So I think we'll get a broader definition of games that will still encompass what we know as games today. And Nikki has something similar to say. Do you want to read Nikki's, by the way?
Sure.
At Commander Nikki?
Yes. She says, maybe not in a way off disappearing, but in a way of changing form. Mm-hmm. Gladiator fights don't exist anymore, but now we have wrestling and boxing, even though that exists just as long, or some other violent spectator sports. But I can't tell and imagine where video games will be going. I
like what she says. By the way, Nikki, fantastic point. Gladiator fights don't exist anymore, but we have wrestling and boxing.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Or some other violent spectator sports. And that's an interesting point to say, is that video games might not exist in the way we see them today, much like what Volt says, like people love the retro style. I think retro video games are coming back in the way of pixel art and the way of indie devs. There's a lot of indie games out there, including Celeste, which just came out in 2018, which was fantastic, by the way, where the retro style is still in play today. Yeah. And what Nikki says is that, video games could change over time where, we don't see video games in the same way as retro, where, you broke up boxes and you got health potions all the time and, collectibles, collect all the stars and whatnot. But it might not be like that, but video games as a definition could change over time. And what do you think about that?
I think that's an interesting point of view because you don't really think back and I don't think back and see how different video games are from when we were younger to now, like the style of them. Right. Like I was just thinking, I'm like, you're right. When we were younger, it was more of walking around and solving a puzzle or opening a box. And it was more collection games than it was stories. And for some reason, I have my Mary Kate and actually Sweet 16 Game Boy Advance game in my head. I don't know why that's what came into my head, but that's what it is. Yeah. And then today it's a lot of more narrative games. Like there's a story behind everything you're doing. So I do think that's an interesting point because I never thought of it that way, how it can change of the way we play in the future. Like back then it was solving puzzles. Today it's following a story and who knows, what the next thing will be. Yeah. Why were you looking at me like that?
All right, can a man just look at his wife like a creep?
No.
I will look like a creep. Anyways, so...
Stop that.
Really thinking about this. Kind of wrapping up our conversation here a little bit. But, not wrapping up, but like, I know what I was talking about.
It's time for bed.
Really, yeah. I've had a long week. But yeah, I think that indie devs are really going to take their rise nowadays. And I think what we see video games as, these indie devs have this sort of, I was going to say vendetta. Indie devs have kind of this heart, this drive to redefine what story writing is. Last week we had an indie game writer, Alyssa Payne, on the show. And even she was talking about how, I asked her the question, how do you want to inspire people, other game writers? And she wants to kind of change the way game writing is, made. She wants to change the way that story writing is perceived. And I think that's what these indie developers are all about. Even Nick DiPaolo, who we had on the show. Nick DiPaolo, his whole topic was breaking the mold. And these indie developers have this heart to change what video games are all about. And I think that's what's going to really change games. Even more so, I think game streaming is going to make it more accessible to the mainstream. Because think about this. We can't really tell the mainstream to play video games because first you have to buy the actual box.
It's expensive to be a gamer.
Yeah, I mean, you have to buy the box, then you have to buy the game, then you have to pick up the controller. There's a lot of steps.
You got to hook it all up.
Yeah, you got to hook it all up. But game streaming, if all you have to do now, once game streaming becomes more accessible, I mean, think about this. Movie streaming, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. You get to really immerse yourself in more movies than you ever were in your entire life versus a DVD player. You're streaming these movies and you get access to way more movies than ever before. In the same way with game streaming, you're going to get access to way more game genres. Yeah. For the mainstream, anyway.
I just need to say that when you said that DVD player, and before you said that, I love how you went to DVD player. I went to my bookcase full of VHS tapes.
Wow.
A bookcase fits a whole lot more DVDs than VHS tapes. And I just thought that was funny that you went to like the most recent thing. I went to like the oldest thing I knew.
My goodness. But that's the thing, is that like, I think game streaming will make video games a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to game stream, I think the mainstream audiences are kind of nervous to get an Xbox because it's a lot of investment to put in just to play one or two games versus game streaming.
Yeah.
You get to have a lot more accessibility. And I believe that game writers someday will be as respected as actual screenwriters because we're getting a lot more celebrities in games.
Yeah.
Look at Death Stranding.
Yeah.
And how Hideo Kojima is kind of like changing the game for celebrity cameos in video games. Keanu Reeves is being in Cyberpunk 2077, which isn't the first time, because if you ever played Matrix Path of Neo, which was an okay game, Enter the Matrix is way better. Get at me, Bob Wolf.
But did he do the voice for that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Let me just fact check that. What do you think about what I just said? My genius words.
Well, I think The Matrix is a little different because it was based off of the movie he was in. So, of course, it had to look like him.
Not Enter the Matrix. Enter the Matrix is so much better. Again, Bob Wolf, get at me on Twitter.
Anyway.
Go for it.
I don't even know what's happening anymore.
So I'm just looking up if Path of Neo was voiced by Keanu Reeves. But yeah, talking about celebrity cameos in video games. What do you think about that?
I like that because I like actors.
Cool. Okay, so I'm not seeing him. I don't think Keanu Reeves was in this. Anyways, so we're getting off track.
See, I was right.
What?
It was just he's not in it.
But what do you think about celebrities being in video games?
I'm excited to see that because I'm a movie and TV person. Like, I like video games, but I love movies and TV. And so to see my favorite like actors and stuff in video games,
it was
really
Andrew
cool.
Bowen.
See, I was right. So it was just the character designed after his looks because he's the character in the movie.
That's why Path of Neo was, inferior to Enter the Matrix. But anyways, but going back on track, that was a little bit of a tangent there. But I think that celebrity cameos are going to make it a lot more accessible because then you're going to think, oh wow, this person's in it. Zac Efron is in a game, or even talking about Until Dawn. You recognized some actors in Until Dawn. You know, she was in One Tree Hill. Oh, she was in Twilight, or she was in America's Top Model. Anyways. But that's the thing. With more celebrity cameos, it's going to get more respect for game writers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you saw Zac Efron in a video game, that would be like, whew.
What?
Like, I mean, like, that would be like crazy. Like,
yeah.
That's what I meant by woof.
Wow.
Not his
woof. Anyways, but that's the thing. By the way, Zac Efron, how is he in just fantastic shape all the time? Like, he's in better shape than Vin Diesel, arguably. It's
the magic of Zac Efron.
I guess so.
It's just like Tinkerbell has fairy dust. Zac Efron has just done a great body. It's just it's there. Just how it works.
Wow. But wrapping up our conversation with this, I think games as we know them, they will change, just as games from the 90s have changed into the 2020s.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to change. And I don't think this is going to spell the end of video games. I don't think video games will ever cease to exist, but I think they'll be more accepted by the mainstream. Because keep in mind that the movie industry is way older than the video game industry.
And it took a while to get where it is.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at movies or even books, you know, like there were like all these articles that I've read that books were considered like the most big, like the biggest waste of time when they were like in the mainstream. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But
I think what you're trying to say
is
that if you think back to when movies first came out, when you could only see them in theaters, it was the only place you saw it. People probably didn't think that they were going to go anywhere, that it was a viable profession.
Or even talking about like when they first came in, like when they were just called the talkies.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when that medium was new, people didn't think anything of it. They probably didn't think that actors were going to be a big deal. You know, they didn't. Even the radio, you can say too. Like, you can go back to when these mediums were new, and people who only had books listening to the radio was probably like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then people who only read and listened to the radio looked at movies were like, that's weird. Like, why are you doing? Like, what is that? Like, why do you care so much about it?
Yeah.
And it goes on from there. So I think we have a good while before it becomes as normal as movies and TV, but eventually it'll get there. Hopefully in our lifetime.
I think it will, because our generation, the gaming generation, is going to get older. We're going to be the boomers pretty soon. And
I wouldn't say pretty soon.
And in our retirement homes, we will have Nintendo 64s.
That would be great.
But that's the thing. I don't think video games will ever cease to exist, but I think they will change by definition of what we know them as. And I think it's just necessary for the future of the games industry. So I think that's a good way to end things off. What do you think? Any closing thoughts?
I think we're good.
Cool. So again, that was our conversation on will video games ever cease to exist. This was episode 88. We definitely have some more plans for the future in 2020. We have a lot more guests that I'm going to reach out to. But yeah, so if you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or hit the notification bell, or do both, I think. Definitely give it a like and a share if you enjoyed this episode on YouTube. And if you're listening on the audio version, whether it be on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, definitely give us a share with a friend, and definitely write us a review so we can get up there in the ranks in iTunes. So definitely give us a ranking on Podchaser or iTunes. Give us your honest star feedback. We would love to read them. We read every single one of them. And you can contact me at contact@gamesgroceries.com. That's the email if you have any questions. But with all that said and done, let's just end this episode. What do you think?
Yep.
We thank you for listening to this week's episode. We hope you have a safe week. Have a great week.
Bye.